Welcome to another video, guys. Today we're gonna be talking about one of the best things I've actually achieved in this game, which is I finally managed to complete the entire Faction Wars card with all full stars, which honestly, if somebody told me a couple of months ago that I would be doing this, I would not have believed them. But indeed we did, so I'm gonna talk about my journey, what I did correct, what I did wrong, and anything in between, so you guys can also maybe someday finish this thing if you already haven't. And if you have, definitely let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to congratulate you. But yeah, I hope you find the video helpful, and if you do, a like and subscribe would be appreciated. Don't forget to check me out live on stream each Tuesday and Thursday, and also if you want to support the channel for free, you can do so by starting your raid with a premium download link from my channel, and that's gonna start you off with 4 amazing champions as soon as your first week, and you're also gonna have 48 hours to use the promo code section for an extra amazing legendary champion. But now, let's get into it. It's definitely worth mentioning that this champion actually did get a pretty decent rebalance not too long ago, like literally less than a couple of months ago, and yeah, you could read up on about it from Raid's Discords. We can see we have quite a lot of damage multipliers changed, we do have some ignore defense action going for her, and so on and so forth. You can definitely read up on about it. But yeah, she is no longer the joke of a mythical champion she used to be when she first got released. She's definitely very usable, especially for PvP, so would definitely not be bad of actually getting her. And another thing worth mentioning is Raid has confirmed they are thinking about making Faction Wars hard a lot easier to complete soon. Well, maybe not a lot, but they definitely said they're gonna be nerfing the requirements to complete Faction Wars. But still, if you're like me and if you want to actually achieve this while it's still a lot harder than it has to be, you can definitely keep on watching the video. And another thing worth mentioning is soon we should also be getting the Argonite faction involved, like maybe in a few months, maybe early next year. So yeah, definitely worth knowing all of these things before actually committing to fully completing Faction Wars hard. Anyway, as you guys see, I still have not claimed this because I am actually gonna wait a few days in order to actually get myself some good points for collecting the goddamn thing, but indeed you can see I have completed the entire freaking thing, all full 945 goddamn freaking stars. And I gotta say, the hardest faction for me to actually complete all of those trials was the Orc tribe. Like, this thing I was missing like literally 4 stars a couple of weeks ago, but I really had to dig deep. I really had to rebuild a lot of champions, level a lot of champions, get masteries, swap out insane relics, and so on and so forth to actually get this thing done. But in the end, it all panned out. I literally would have been done with this thing a couple of weeks ago, but my dumbass actually accidentally clicked the X3 button instead of ×1, and that actually cost me an entire rotation until it came back to Orcs. On that day, I again clicked the X3 because I only had to complete 1 achievement, and I accidentally killed the entire wave before I revived my champions, and again I got only 1 star. But yeah, a lot of crappy stuff happened in between those runs. But as for the challenges themselves, it really was a struggle at the beginning. This was one of the hardest things for me to actually get into once it came out, like a year ago, was it? Maybe a little bit less, but it was definitely quite the grind, quite the champion levelings had to happen. And yeah, that's how Raid actually gets you. That's how they get you to spend more resources than you actually need, with more bigger, better restricted content, with a lot of good rewards like top tier glyphs, top tier relics, and so on and so forth. And I gotta say, one of the really challenging levels was this thing on most factions. Like, whenever you get to face these freaking dwarfs, it was just so goddamn awful. Like, the last wave is absolutely insane, the beginning is not easy, the middle is pretty rough, but the end really was absolutely miserable. But somehow I managed to do that on all the factions with all the stars. Really was no joke. Getting all champions to be alive at all of the time was really not that easy, but somehow we managed. For some of the other challenges, it really wasn't that hard. Like here, when you want to be healing, you just dilly-dally with your nukers for a few turns until your heals actually happen. You could even do it with regen sets. Like, you literally do not have to have specific champions to get this thing done. So it's really not worth talking about it too much. On challenges like this, even if you do not have yourself freeze champions, you could just use sets that actually freeze. so that is specifically why I kept frost pieces on some champions. Like, I don't have that many frost pieces, but I have enough to actually build a couple of champions into it, and that's how we managed a few. There was also the other frostbite set, which also you could be forging yourself a few decent pieces, and you basically just equip a bunch of champions, you last long enough and it's gonna happen, but it definitely was not fun, especially the one where you have to freeze 15. With the stun one, you can just build yourself a couple of champions with the stun set, and that's gonna get you on your right way, even though it was pretty disgusting against freaking Elvas and cleansers and block buffers. So if you don't have champions that strip, if you don't have champions that stun themselves, it could be quite the RNG fest, but it's just a matter of time, so it did happen at the end. Reducing 6 enemies HP by 50%. Basically, you gotta build one of your nukers absolutely through the roof. Like, with Faction Wars, you literally cannot spare any gear. Like, so many times I literally just had to move my literal best gear from my fastest champions like Arbiter to my support champions, from my best nukers like Marius to my defense nukers of that faction, and so on and so forth. Definitely could not be skipping on your best gear when it comes down to such a hard restricted piece of content, but it is gonna happen. One way or another, you should be able to actually get this thing done, especially if you bring somebody that brings decreased defense plus weaken. Manipulating turn meter 40 times on stage 6, not that big a deal. You could literally do this just with masteries alone. Like, if you last long enough, eventually your masteries are gonna be enough to actually get this thing done. Like, rapid response is gonna get that done, arcane celerity can get that done as well. Heck, there's even some relics you could be using instead, which could be worth it. For instance, this can be considered a turn meter manipulation. So yeah, it's really not that big a deal. Even if you don't have the specific champions, it's gonna happen eventually. As for this goddamn boss, it's definitely pretty disgusting when you face whatever the hell this guy's called, like Mirror or something? I don't even know. I guess, yeah, Tainted Mirrorer. He's definitely pretty disgusting. You gotta be careful with your debuffs. You also gotta be careful not to drop him down too low before your healer slash reviver is ready to pick your team up, but it's not that hard. It's just annoying, especially if you have to farm him on stage 21, but it is definitely doable, albeit could be kind of miserable first time you see him. Afterwards, again, we have much of the same challenges, just increased by 33% or by 50%. In this case, it's increased by 100%. You just gotta heal twice as much as the first half, but it's, again, not that hard. With the place 15 freezes, again, much of the same stuff. Here it's even more annoying because you have, again, Elva and frickin' Jing Wong. And the frickin' devs were so frickin' uninspired, they literally repeated the same turn 1 wave with the second turn 2 wave, with exactly the same champions, which was pretty disgusting, not gonna lie. Like, it was very miserable to actually place all of these freezes, especially on some of the factions, but somehow we managed. And the first time I actually managed to do that on some of the factions, the last goddamn wave actually got me, which was definitely pretty devastating, but yeah, Faction Wars hard can be a bitch. On stage 10, it's really not that big a deal, you just gotta use 3 epics. A lot of the times I actually did manage to have some pretty decent epics in these factions, like for this case you could have Royal Guard. This guy was actually pretty insane. I used them for the don't land any weak hits. He can actually smack big time if you give him some proper stuff. So yeah, using 3 epics should not be a big deal. Like, some of my stage 21 teams still included epics, so why wouldn't I? On stage 11, placing 15 stuns was not that big a deal. Again, you just gotta be meticulous about it, you gotta wait it out, you gotta be going slow is what you gotta be going. Like, in some cases you might even have to remove your best AoE nuker just so you can actually last longer without killing everybody. But again, a few fast stun sets could get the job done on some AoE champions, especially if you don't have dedicated stunners. Stage 13, here we had to reduce 9 enemies HP down by 50%. Again, if you have some proper knee slappers, it shouldn't be that big a deal. Just build somebody through the roof with a lot of damage, give yourself some decreased defense as well as weaken, and that ought to get the job done. Against the Tainted Protector, it wasn't that hard for the most part. Yeah, he could be annoying with them fears and stuff, but usually I didn't really have much troubles with this guy all around, so no point in talking about it too much. You can just read the guide about him, I guess. And now we start moving down to the really hard stages, with the first one greeting you with the goddamn Torment stage. Like I said, this was the most bullshit stage for most of these factions, not gonna lie, but once you actually manage to handle these, after that it arguably becomes a little bit easier, or maybe just a little bit less annoying, but this one definitely was very godforsaken. Beating the stage with all champions alive definitely was not easy, especially with the last stage. Like, the Mountain King slaps like no other, he ignores freaking unkillables, ally protection, strengthens shields and everything like that, so if you don't control him somehow, you're gonna have a very bad time. Molly was pretty annoying, especially with Torment. The faction unity guy also pretty busted, but yeah, you're eventually gonna get through those as well, I guess. On stage 17, not landing any weak hits, that can definitely be a problem if you don't have yourself a few good Void champions, but even if you don't, you could just try your luck with some very good nuker if you have one of those, and you basically just restart until the goddamn thing happens. Could be pretty disgusting, but if you're smart about it, if you actually time your champions attacks correctly, you could be using some single target champions so you can be attacking in favorable affinities and so on and so forth. And of course, if all else fails, you could just build yourself a bunch of affinity breaker sets. I never really got into that. Personally, feels a little bit too annoying to do, and yeah, I just waltzed through it. I did have a good chunk of Void nuker champions, which was definitely very important, but in some cases I literally had to get lucky and just AoE the hell out of them with some proper nukers. I'm definitely sure I did that on Undead Horse because I have myself a very decked out Calamitas, and I basically just AoE'd the hell out of them. We had to get lucky on a few of the waves, but with a just single hit, it was just a matter of a few restarts. Defeating 4 enemies before they take a turn can definitely be quite troublesome. If you have yourself a lot of good speed champions, however, if you have yourself some good turn meter manipulation, that can be pretty easy, like Fabians, like other good turn meter reduction champions shouldn't be that big a deal. Ally attack champions can get the job done quite quickly, so yeah, it's really not that complicated to do if you have yourself some decent champions, of course. This was the other absolutely disgusting stage, stage 19, where you gotta face frickin' this guy. Like, Aragaz was absolutely disgusting with these faction unity buffs, really disgusting to face. This guy not being controllable also was quite the problem, like his passive prevents you from actually stunning him, so that's quite the issue, but again, a ton of restarts. I think I had to use my frickin' magma shield on a few of these to actually get myself a little bit more health. In this case, we had to actually use ally attacks to kill these, but in others you actually have to remain above 75% HP, so that was quite the bitch. But yeah, again, definitely one of the hardest stages. Still very happy I actually managed on everybody. And the last non-boss stage is stage 20 against these guys. They're not that big a deal usually. Defeat 3 enemies while your champions are under 7 or more buffs. That can be very disgusting, but you could actually bypass this if you especially have yourself a few mythical relics. That's actually how I managed to beat the orc level where we had that requirement. But yeah, if you have some nutty relics like the Volcardiatic Heart is one unique buff you could be bringing. You could also actually bring Fervor for somebody, even though I didn't actually do that, because you actually need to heal with this thing for that to land. Another mythical relic you could be using would be the Tower Helm. This thing gives you Fortify. I had to use this on my doggo in order to actually get myself 7 buffs. And another thing you could be bringing, of course, which you are going to be bringing against basically everything, would be a good bolster set, guys. Like, a good bolster set, that alone gives you a very big shield, and it's also an extra unique buff you could be bringing. But you could also be doing something like building your nuker into a 4-piece feral set. 4-piece feral set is gonna give you block buffs for 4 turns. You could also do that with pinpoint as well, so you can actually get yourself an intercept stack. Like, there are options. Even if you don't have enough buff champions, like I didn't against frickin' orcs, there are still ways you can actually handle it. You just gotta be creative about it. And lastly, for high elves at least, we have this boss, which again isn't really that big a deal. You should be able to handle it quite easily. These are not all the challenges, by the way. Like, we have other unique challenges, or maybe not so unique. I think they get repeated on most things, but yeah, like, we could go through the banner laws right now, which is also open, so we can take a look at a few of these. And here things are a little bit different. Reduce 6+ enemies HP by 50% with 1 skill. That can be kind of annoying, but again, get yourself a proper nuker with the proper gear, and that should be fine. Place 10 provokes. You could be bringing the provoke set, even if you don't have yourself good provoke champions. champions, like build a couple of good AoE champions with provoke sets, and that ought to get it done if you're patient enough. Placing 10 stuns, we already talked about that, it's not that big a deal. Manipulate buff or debuff duration 20 plus times. Here, again, it could happen with masteries, I do believe. Like the mastery that extends buffs and debuffs, I think does work. Like Master Hexer, I think, is gonna get the job done, as well as lasting gifts. But of course, you are gonna have to be very, very slow with the run for those to actually proc enough times. Landing 40 plus hits while enemies are under leech could not be that big a deal. Even if you don't have yourself a leech champion, you could bring yourself a mastery again. This thing, Harvest of Despair, has a 60% chance of placing a leech debuff for 1 turn when placing stun, sleep, fear, true fear, freeze, petrification debuffs. So even if you don't have yourself a dedicated leech champion, you could just bring this thing and that's gonna get you there. Again, manipulating turns is not that big a deal. You could be doing it with masteries or just champions. Stage 8 here, reduce 9 plus enemies HP below 50, again with a proper nuker, using free epics, yada yada. This one could be particularly disgusting. Stage 11, defeat all enemies when they have no buffs on them. Like, this can be pretty miserable if you don't have yourself a block buffs champion, but if you do, it should be a walk in the park. Placing 15 stuns, again, you just gotta wait a while. If you don't have stunners, just use the stun sets. And do not receive more than 10 debuffs. It's not particularly hard, all you gotta do is just control everybody, or bring yourself some block buffs champions, that can also work, and you should be good as rain. Here we have another Torment stage with beat this stage without anybody dying. That can be pretty disgusting, but again, it's gonna happen eventually. Defeating free enemies while using ally attacks or counter attacks could be disgusting, and again, even if you don't have yourself some good counter attack champions, you could just build a few champions into a counter attack set. Personally, I did not use that at all, but it is something to consider. The retaliation set could be something worth investing into. I myself really don't have myself enough keys to do anything with this, and honestly, I'm just gonna sell this one while we're at it. But another thing you could be using is actually this thing. Has a 50% chance of counterattacking when this champion loses 25% of their max HP. This way, even if you don't have a counterattacker, you could still be slapping back. But of course, it's gonna be pretty random, so not very good stuff. Again, not landing any weak hits, just build yourself some proper void champions or a really good nuker and just risk it. Defeating 4 enemies before they take a turn, again, could be kind of miserable, but if you have yourself some pretty nasty nukers, you should be able to do it a few times. Keeping all champions above 75% HP could be very miserable, but again, here if you have yourself the mythical Volcardiatic Heart, if you have yourself a good bolster set, and if you're not against champions like Nice that can actually ignore all of those set shields, you should be having a good time. But yeah, this one could be definitely pretty tricky. Of course, we're missing plenty of other challenges right now with the opened stages. For instance, there are stages where you gotta kill enemies with 10 debuffs on them. That can be pretty miserable. But if you bring yourself a ton of poison sets, as well as ally attack champions, retaliation champions, that kind of stuff. For instance, against the Sacred Order, it was especially hard for me to actually pull off that stage. It can definitely still happen. And another very, very good place for information you could be using when it comes down to faction wars would be none other than Hell Hades with their faction wars tier lists. Here you could read for any faction basically what needs to happen. They do have tips for everything, so you could be definitely looking into these into detail. They also have a chart of champions depending on what you need out of them for damage, for offensive support, for defensive support, as well as for control. So here you could actually see what type of champions you have and what you could be doing against those. And of course, you could also select the exact stage and read on what you could be doing to actually pass it. Stage 18 on hard orcs was the last one I needed to pass, so here I could read on what kind of stats I needed in order to actually get the job done. And this way you basically are gonna know what you're gonna be facing before you actually reach it, because a lot of the times, like, I literally managed to complete the goddamn thing on stage 1 and on stage 2, and all I had to do is actually survive stage 3, but I entered unprepared. Frickin' Tetsuya reduced my turn meter on everything, dropped fear on everybody, and we just died miserably. So yeah, it could be pretty disgusting, but if you know what you're gonna be facing, you could just read upon on it beforehand, and that is gonna prepare you and save you a lot of time. Like I said, in order to actually get this thing entirely done, you are gonna need quite a lot of champions, so right now I will actually get myself a few extra potential champions with the shop stuff. We are actually having some pretty amazing event right now with Solinar being up for grabs, so I will be buying myself a bunch of void void shards. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna be pulling for him, however, but I'm definitely feeling kind of itchy, not gonna lie. I did see some decent void packs, like this one, for instance, looks pretty obtainable. This one's pretty okay, but yeah, I'd say this one has a little bit better bang for the buck, so let me just bag a couple of these baddies so we're prepared for it. So yeah, this definitely did help me pass quite a few other levels, especially the ones where we had to not land any weak hits. So yeah, let me grab a few of these so we are ready for some potential solo nerf action with 121 shards. I don't know, guys, do let me know in the comments if you guys think I should be blasting for these. Like, definitely gonna pick this guy. Getting empowerment for this guy can also be pretty worth it, but I don't know, man. Like, feels like we're summoning a little bit too much shards lately. Also, if you haven't gotten yourself Fina, she can be quite the fine addition to your roster, that's for sure. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I'm not sure this video is gonna do particularly well, but I definitely wanted to talk a little bit more about this insane achievement we actually managed to do on my freaking account, which is less than 4 years old, guys. I don't know if you guys know, but my account is literally 3 years old, but somehow we managed to complete this absolutely absurd achievement, which definitely is quite the badge of honor I'm gonna be wearing. But yeah, hope to see you guys on Tuesday and Thursday streams where I do free account takeovers for you guys. And if you want to support the channel for free, you can start yourself a fresh new account for my premium download link and get yourself 4 amazing champions in your first week of playing. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Crystal5, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.